people.
Yeah.
As president, I imagine it must have been challenging at times. Can you share with us some of those challenges?
Yes, so I think I've touched on a few of those challenges. Like I said, balance, right? Um, my final year was very, very hectic, right? I've said before that when I try to balance two things, I'm not trying to do the average. Like, I'm not trying to get the average I can get from those two things. I'm trying to like really excel at those two things, right? So my goal when I was entering into primary level was, okay, I'm going to be president, right? I have to excel at being president, one, but I have to really excel at being a student of mechanical engineering UI, right? So I had my final year project to work on too as well. So balancing all those things was very, very tough in my 5th year. So that was one big challenge I faced. Two, when we started this journey, so myself and my executives, it was very tough on us because we didn't really have like a handover or something like that, right? So, and I've never held any position like this before in the school period. So I didn't know what I was doing. I wouldn't say I didn't know what I was doing at all. I just didn't know exactly how, an association like this works. And there were some people too in my team that also shared the same problem. So it was very tough, learning on the job and trying to, we made a few errors in the beginning that, I guess I was very quick to pick up on. But yeah, that was a big challenge too, working without like a handover, right? That's a challenge. And yeah, I think those were some of the. And then this is very important. Nigeria was a challenge too as well, right? I'll cite one example. We changed the budget for the conference about 7 times. I think about 7 times. Why? It wasn't just because, okay, maybe we wanted to add something or subtract something. You do a budget today, and then the new president comes and says there's no subsidy for cost 500 naira now. So your budget has to change, right? So maybe you were going to spend, I don't know, maybe 1 million naira on a particular event. It's now 1.4, 1.5, just because prices have gone up in the space of 1 week, right? So that was a very big challenge for us as well. And then I think the last thing I would say is time. So I think this is the second administration after the COVID-19 pandemic, so that really affected a lot of things. So for the first time in my 7-year history as a student, we had an 11-week semester, second semester, right? That doesn't happen. So as if that wasn't bad enough, they said we were going to do 3 of those virtually, and we did them virtually, right? So we had 8 weeks to do whatever we wanted to do for the second semester. So that was a big challenge, and I think in the end we just walked through all of them, and we really, really succeeded in them.
You did. You really succeeded. I was at the conference.
Yeah.
While we were talking, you mentioned the Student Representative Council, and I would like to know, how would you describe your experience with the NiMechE-UI Student Representative Council?
So in one word, I'd say classic, right? The executive committee and the SRC, we, from like the beginning of NiMechE-UI, every single session, the role of the SRC is to provide checks and balances, right? So we have very heated discussions. We discuss our plans and initiatives for the session. They cut back on some of the things we want to do. They add things we want to do. But yeah, so we had our arguments, we had our agreements. I'd say that to any leader in the university, like if you are leading people that don't pose any opposition to you or have any argument with you, then you are either leading fools or you're not innovating at all. So we had a number of things that were very new that we bring into the table this session. So of course we had many discussions with the SRC. And I said classic because I've been reading this book about Julius Caesar, about his time in the Senate, when he was consul and was having discussions with people like Cato, always attacking his ideas. It's not as if we want to fight. The SRC really wants NiMechE-UI to do well. The Executive Council wants NiMechE-UI to do well. So I just say classic. It was beautiful. But if I want to give any thoughts leading into the future, I'd like to say that I want both bodies to work even closer than they already were, right? So to the incoming president and the incoming speaker, I want them to be very close, one and two. I'd even advise that going forward, there be a joint WhatsApp group for both executives and the SRC so that everybody is carried along throughout the session. Yeah.
In your role as president, what would you describe as your major breakthroughs or wins?
All right. So we had many wins this session. So I'll start from first semester and I'll try to cover as many as I can remember. So one major thing we did this semester was UI Making, right? Before, like when during my manifesto night, I discussed evolution. That was like the theme of my campaign, right? So before this session, we've always used the NiMechE logo for everything, right? So I just felt there was nothing that could really, nothing unique to UI Mech, right? Nothing that you could point at and say, those are the guys from UI, right? So at the beginning of the session, after we had all the internal discussions with the SRC, I created a small group of people from the department, called it the test group, right? So I pitched the idea to them, can we have like a symbol? It's not going to replace the NiMechE logo, but a symbol that just tells everybody that this is UI, mechanical engineering. So I threw the naming process open, right? I said, if you have any ideas for the new name, drop them. So they dropped, we voted, everybody liked UI MechE. Then we ran through a series of logo ideas and then we picked one that made sense. And that's how UI MechE was born. So I'm going to say this now because it's very important for the future, so that everybody understands what NiMechE-UI is, what UI MechE is. So our country is the Federal Republic of Nigeria, right? What we call it Niger. You go to Lagos, it's Lagos State. We can call it ASCII, right? Or LAG. It's the same thing with UI. With NiMechE-UI, we are NiMechE-UI. But you can also call us UI MechE. That's just basically what it is, right? So that was UI MechE. Another very big win we had this session is this, what we're doing now, the YouTube channel, right? That was a very big agenda of my mind going into this session. I felt like we needed to put UI MechE on a global stage, right? Let anyone in the world see what we're doing here, because we're doing so many interesting things and it just dies here, right? So it's just your friends that know that you did this session. How can we let the world know that people here are doing very interesting things? So that was a big win for us. I think at the end of the first semester, it was what we did our first game night as a department. That was very interesting. We had it overnight at the design studio. That was a fantastic experience. Second semester, I'll just quickly run through some things that we did that were interesting. So the conference, like you mentioned, we did the first international conference, I think by department and faculty, right? So we invited people from around the world to speak to us at the international conference. Yes, I won't spend, maybe I'll talk about that later. And I think the biggest thing that we've really done this session is the renovation of the design studio, right? So for a very long time, over 30 years, our design studio is basically the lecture hall, if you will, of the Department of Mechanical Engineering. It's been the same for over 30 years, right? Not the same, it's actually degraded, right? So at the beginning of this session, I just entered there and I just felt like this was terrible. It was very dirty. Half the windows were gone. The curtains were destroyed. It was an eyesore. So reached out to a few alumni, members of the association. I said, this is the state of our design studio. What can you do to improve this? And we're very fortunate that a particular set stood up and said, you know what, we're going to take this on. So that's the 1997 class of NiMechE-UI. So they funded the renovation. So it's still an ongoing process. We have, at this stage, replaced all the windows that were there they were louvers before, now they're casement windows, and they have so many plans for. So it's going to spill into the next administration, but that's the biggest thing that I feel like we've accomplished here.
Speaking about the conference, what inspired the theme and concept of this year's UI Mechie conference?
Right, so the theme of this year's conference was First Contact. First Contact has its origins in Star Trek, right? When members of one, like humans, meet an alien civilization or something, so you have first contact with that civilization. It's the same thing with us. The Nigerian engineering scene is very limited, right? When you finish from here, you have very few options if you want to actually make serious impact. So maybe you go into oil and gas. I mean, that's the default um, thing. But what if you're interested in automotive engineering? And I don't just mean you want to make cars. Maybe you want to make Formula One cars or work on Formula One cars. What if you're interested in space, robotics, things like that? So the only way we could get people interested in these things or get them to feel like all hope is not lost was to actually get people working in these fields, people outside Nigeria, to speak to them so that they could get some form of inspiration, if you will. So that was basically the idea behind First Contact. And what's interesting to note is that we had the theme for the conference before the session even began. So that was in 2020, right? So yeah, that's basically all First Contact. Um,
You had a notable lineup of speakers at the conference. And I just want to know, how were you and your team able to accomplish that?
Okay, that's a good question. I think at this point, I'd like to really appreciate the efforts of the speaker recruitment team for the NiMechE-UI conference in 2023. So that team was responsible for recruiting all the speakers we had at this conference. So it was very, I wouldn't say it was easy, but all we did was, reach out to these people on LinkedIn, through email, just telling them, just pitching the idea of the NiMechE-UI conference, the first international conference. We had many people that were on board. In fact, one interesting thing to note is that we had a few, let's say, a CEO and some other people from, like, these weren't African people outside. These were, I think we had someone from Switzerland, CEO of Pfizer. He acknowledged that he was going to be at the conference, but then we had a strike and then he lost interest. But yeah, they were responsible for all the speakers we had. We just reached out to them and pitched the idea of the conference, and the speakers bought in, and then we had the conference that we had.
Well done to you and your team. What are you grateful for the most in your administration?
I'm very thankful for the team that I got to work with these past few years. That's my executive team. I haven't said this often or too many times, but I just felt like it was an A team, a very perfect team. Every member of my team was the best person for their particular role, right? So I really want to appreciate every single member of the executive team. So I'm very grateful for them. Then I'm also very grateful to every single person, alumni or otherwise, that played a role in ensuring that all the ideas, initiatives that we had planned for the session were accomplished.
Speaking of alumni, seeing as you are more or less done, you are now an alumnus of the department. So, what is the fate of the alumni of NiMechE-UI and how do you intend to help with that?
Okay, so I imagine that you want me to discuss the NiMechE-UI alumni cohort and future plans for that, right? So the goal at the beginning of this session was just to create the cohort itself, right? Get all our alumni from everywhere they are, put them in maybe one LinkedIn page. So we did that. We have over 100 members of the NiMechE-UI alumni cohort page, right? So that was the goal initially. We didn't even expect that we were going to engage them. So obviously, this win we had with the department is one of the fruits of that group. So going forward into the future, we're going to keep building this database of alumni we have. Right? We haven't reached out to every single person we can reach out to. Right? So that's going to be something that I hope the next administration continues to work on. Updating that page, one, and two, engagement. So the big idea, or I'd say one of the things that really spurred me to work really hard on that, was internships in the department, right? It seems as if there are limited opportunities for us, or that it's very difficult to get into the very big places. But we have people that have finished from here that are in these really big places that could serve as a bridge between us and there. So that's one thing I hope that the next administration and administrations after can really work on. So we've already worked on how to get funding for the design studio. That's been a big problem for a long time. The next challenge is how do we start making very personal relationships with these alumni to get them to, you know, improve the range of opportunities that we have as a department. Yeah.
Speaking of the next administration, how would you describe your relationship with the incoming president? Do you have any words of advice or encouragement for him?
Okay, so I'm the incoming president. That's Samuel Itama. I think he's a very wonderful person. I think he's a great guy. He's here. He's here as well. So he's the head of the media team, and the reason I said that is because he has been very involved, right, in this year's administration, right. I'd say, I think he was a member of virtually almost every single team or initiative we had this session, and I feel that that is something that should be emulated by anybody else that wants to hold this position in the future. So, I mean, I think that already explains what relationship I have with him. Do I have any words of encouragement for him? I'd say that don't give up. That's number one, because it's going to get tough. Sometimes you're going to think, why did I do this? Why did I buy this form to become president? Right? Why did I contest? Um, don't give up, because it's worth it in the end. And then listen to the people. So you will have thousands of ideas. You think that all of them are in the best interest of NiMechE-UI, but you really need to listen to the people, hear what they want. I had some ideas that in my head I felt like were the best thing for everybody. But then when you pitch these ideas to, for instance, the test group I created, they'll get back to you and say, oh, what's this? What's this trash? Right? So listen to the people, hear what they want, and then you have to accept that you can't do everything, right? Make sure you do what you can. Nobody's paying you for this role, right? This is a volunteer role. So do what you can, and stay the course, and just make sure that um, you innovate, right? That's one more point I want to make. Innovate, but don't over innovate, right? That's one thing I learned. um, Change is good, but too much change becomes a problem. People start to kick back against that. So make sure that you are innovating, you are taking risks, you're taking smart, measured risks, but don't make everything you do as president be change, 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 change. You can work to improve certain things that are legacy, and I believe that he's going to do really well. And build on the things that we have done to do even better things during his administration.
Good luck, Tama. You're going to need it.
You know,
Seeing as you've spoken on your relationship with the incoming presidency, we want to ask. Okay, not we. I want to ask. What is your relationship status?
I'm very single.
Why very single? What happened?
Uh, I've just not found love. Right.
All right. If there are three people you could shout out to right now, who would they be?
That's a very hard task, because there are so many people that have contributed to the success of this administration. I'm not going to limit it to three. I'll just say as many people as I can. I want to appreciate all the past presidents of NiMechE-UI, so Sydney Okora for Aleto Oamen Joachim, and Obasi Obina Paul, and of course Salah Habib. They were very supportive. I mean, I said these are some of the best men I know, right? They were there for me at so many instances during the session when I felt like I didn't know I was doing. I said, I felt like there were some things that I didn't know about, running the show. So they were very key, and then they also supported financially as well. So they were some of the first people to invest in some of the initiatives that we did. So I want to appreciate them for that. Then I'd like to really thank the 1997 class of NiMechE-UI, right? They came together and said, we're going to step up to this challenge and finally renovate design studios. So I'm very grateful to them. And I've said this before, but I also want to thank every single member of the executive committee. I think we're even going to name them. So I want to thank my vice president, that's Hazan David. He was a very fantastic vice president. The general secretary, Comfort, who also doubled as the dinner committee chairman, very amazing woman. The social welfare director, that's Shegun Adediba, who also doubled as the conference chairman. So what's interesting is that these two, Comfort and Shegun, were in a previous video about misconceptions. So go and watch that video. Then the sports director, Chokwe. We won Dean's Cup. My class won HOD's Cup. So this year was very surreal for UI Mickey Sports. Then the academic director, Timothy, fantastic academic director, he made sure that academics was on point this session as well. The treasurer, Remo, making sure that our money was good. Then our PRO, Emmanuel Ogunshola, um, honestly, he was responsible for like 90% of the graphic designs we did. We didn't pay him, but he executed, flawlessly. So I want to thank each and every one of them for just being amazing people. And so I don't waste time, I'll just stop there. Yeah.
Thank you, Eri. It was really nice getting to know you. So we've been up close and personal with Eri, and I hope you enjoyed getting to know him almost as much as I did. And if you liked this video, I'd recommend going back to the other videos on the YouTube channel. Thank you. See you next time.